I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. And so I go off and get married. And then what? It starts recreating itself. I remember I was early in sobriety. I had a mentor. We were all musicians, and they had a kid, sweet girl, and they said, "We want you to watch her today." I was like, "No, I never even been around kids." I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "No." They're like, "Yeah, we want you to." And so I spent the day with her, just going around doing our music stuff and watching her. And then at the end of the day, we were going to get dinner or whatever we were doing. So we all piled up in the car and I put her in the car seat. And we were driving and they were in the front seat and they start to bicker back and forth over a guitar pick. And I remember like I was sitting in the back seat and my anxiety, like it
Uh,
was intense because I couldn't get out. And in my
yeah.
head, I'm like, they're about to like either fight or get divorced or like, and this is happening right in front of me. You know what happened?
Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Becoming Sound podcast. I'm Krista Zaft, your host, and I am excited that you joined me today. This is where we talk about the tough stuff. And I am always excited to talk about this stuff with people who have lived experience and who are making a difference in the world in this capacity. So today I have Joshua Pear on the show. He is joining us from Longview, Texas, and he is a licensed chemical dependency counselor. And Joshua knows recovery from the inside out. After battling an addiction rooted in childhood trauma, he rebuilt his life through counseling, education, and community. Today, he provides substance use counseling and education, drug and alcohol screening, as well. He develops a recovery curriculum for correctional settings. And he also hosts his own podcast, The Pathways to Recovery. His work is grounded in both personal experience and professional training and helping others navigate change through honesty and hope. And I absolutely love talking to a fellow ACA, and we're going to dive into that today. There's so much depth to this conversation. So stick around and join us right until the end. There's a wealth of insight here. So let's get started with Josh. Hi, Josh. How are you doing today?
Very good. Very excited to be on. Thank you for letting me share my story with everyone today. And um, it's been really cool to get to know you and how much we relate on the adult children of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And have to say, unfortunately, we're not alone.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So tell my audience what it is you do, how you serve the world.
I'm a LCDC, a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I provide counseling services for people in the Department of Transportation, but also the criminal justice system. I'm in long term recovery myself. I've been through sober livings and counseling. Um, I have my own private practice, Addiction Recovery Solutions. I do drug testing. Um, let's see, online education, and podcasting. Uh, write curriculum. I'm working on a curriculum right now that is for outpatient drug and alcohol programs. And as part of the 12 steps, I like to share not only my story with drugs and alcohol, but my experience in overcoming emotional intoxication and finding emotional sobriety.
Yeah. So tell us your story. I'm curious.
So I grew up in a dysfunctional home. My dad was, he cooked methamphetamines. My mom, she was on and off of them. She has mental health issues, and there was a lot of fighting in the home growing up. One would leave, the other would be in and out of jail. It was a time that it was me and my little brother. We would kind of bounce around from our aunt's house to her grandmother's house, and so living with them, with my aunts and my grandmother, being in church and having more of a healthy environment, then going back to the chaos and going back and forth, I got to see two different dichotomies of how to live. But also, like my parents would go through like spurts of sobriety, off of drugs and alcohol, and we would get in church and try to conform to this. I think what other people wanted us to be and look like, and that kind of affected me in a way to where I struggled with my relationship with God. It was more about performance based, and what looked right. Um, Versus my personal relationship. I remember the first time I checked into a sober living home. It was actually a Christian sober living home, and part of their intake process is, "Are you a Christian?" I said, "Yeah, of course. My whole family's Christian." Like that makes any sense, but that was my depth of understanding at that point. Um, so around 13, well, I started drinking a little bit before then. Around 13, I was smoking some marijuana with one of my friends from school, and it was laced with crack. And that was a very intense experience. I didn't like it. I freaked out, ran to back home, hid in the bathroom, and once it kind of wore off, I was like, "Whoa, that was weird. I'm not going to do that ever again." And I kept smoking weed. My brother, he was struggling in school. He had ADD or ADHD and was prescribed Ritalin, and he didn't like it. It made him just kind of like a zombie. Um, and I was curious, so I asked for it. He gave it to me, and it really changed the. I feel like there was a big trajectory in my life. For me, it was a fix. It fixed some things as far as in my head and my messed up version of a solution.
How so? Like, can you explain that a little bit?
So I was in special education all throughout in elementary. I had speech impediment, struggled with speech, and which is ironic now that I have to, talk so much. But when I found that, also I was getting in trouble a lot in school. I would get in fights and not be able to pay attention, and would get up and just start walking around or walk out of class and walk into another class and sit down, just like, oh, I had a lot of energy and little focus, and started taking that, and like things changed. I love school anyways. Even though I was struggling in it, it was like a safe place. I loved my teachers. I actually was in art club, and all that type of stuff. I was trying to do as much as I could not to go home. I didn't like to go home because everything that was happening there. But I would, when I started taking the Ritalin, I was able to really focus. My grades got better. I went from being in like the special ed classes to extended, which is not AP, but it was like a little bit below. It was below. I graduated high school with some college courses, about half an associate's, and then went on to college to be in band and graduated. Dean's List, spoke at the graduation, like almost twice as many credits as I needed, and transferred to Texas State. So things were going like really good. I found that Ritalin, and although I used like marijuana, drank other drugs here and there, that was something that I used every day. And it wasn't like I was taking a whole bunch to just get high, but I would take it almost every day that I could keep it in my possession as more of just maintenance. And it wasn't until I failed human communications like two times. I could have dropped the class, but I was so worried about. I moved to San Marcos and loved the party scene, the music scene. I was really just focused on that. Was doing good in all my music classes, but I was not really applying myself in other areas. I started using more drugs, heavier, and when I didn't drop that class, I lost my scholarship, so I lost my apartment, lost my financial aid, had to move back I actually moved back with my dad, and that was not a good situation. Did a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, of like a cocaine binge.
Mm.
Ended up doing some meth with him, and I just remember being so mad. I was mad. I didn't know it was meth. He had chopped it up into a line. He knew I'd been doing cocaine for 2 weeks. So to chop it up in a line, which you don't do meth, and hey, come do a line. He didn't say come do a line of meth. He said come do a line. So in my head, I'm doing cocaine. But there was that veil of trust, even though he was who he was. I trusted him, and went and did it. And I was up for 2 days. I'm like, man, this is the best cocaine I've ever done. cocaine,
I know how
cocaine.
cocaine works. I
Yeah,
haven't done it, but I know how it works.
it
So
doesn't
yeah, I
work
get
like
that.
that, does it? And
No.
uh, once I came to the realization that it was methamphetamine, I was pretty mad that. And what was crazy, I was mad that I've been wasting all my money and all my time on doing all these other drugs when methamphetamine has been right here. And those 2 years, I think the amphetamine use for the almost 10 years before that, 8 years, really set me up to be addicted to methamphetamine, let alone being predisposed from my parents
Hmm.
had that same issue. I just went all out, and it really changed my character a lot. A lot. Hurt some people, broke into some houses, did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I lost a lot of friends. Some of them I've gotten back over the years. Some of them I have not. And I've been in. I've been off of drugs for 11 years now, and
Oh
kind of
wow, congrats. That's
thank you.
awesome.
But some of this, what I wanted to share today was the things that I did not realize was going to be a struggle. I really thought, put down the drugs and everything will be fine. Like, I'll get better.
Hmm.
Everything will get better. And that's not how that worked.
Yeah.
I had a lot more issues. I was using the drugs and the lifestyle
I
to,
think that's unfortunately a common um, thought pattern, right? Like if I just give up the drugs or the alcohol, all my problems will be solved. And unfortunately, the problems were there before the drugs and alcohol came.
yeah,
So that's not the way it works. So, um, when were you introduced to kind of ACA work?
okay. I had went to that sober living, and I
Uh-huh.
was sober for 2, 3 years. I had met my wife during that time, and we got married around then, and moved in together. And I really struggled with that, just being that close to someone. I think in
Mhm.
all my other relationships were very shallow, and I kept them that way. Uh,
Yeah.
Anybody that was like, I think that tried to care for me, I would push them away, and I didn't understand then that was me recreating that abandonment
Mhm.
and
Is
isolation.
your wife was your wife in recovery too, or?
Hmm.
Yep.
Yep. She had a history of opioid use, and we were both in a good place as far as that. And I think she was a lot more emotionally mature than I was, but our struggles are a little different. But the being close to someone, and you kind of bring baggage. That's what I was doing. I was bringing my own baggage into my relationship. You have these irrational beliefs that I didn't know were like in me start to come out. So a lot of earlier arguments that my parents would have, they would just come out. The same things, the same words, the
Mhm.
same insecurities, the same projections, and then I'd like sit down later and I was like, that has nothing to do with her. Like, why am I so crazy? And the drugs and were really just numbing a lot of that, and I didn't have anything to blame it on anymore. I couldn't blame it on being high. I couldn't blame it on not having a drug. I couldn't blame it on any of that. I'd been without it for 3 years. Where's this stuff coming from? And had the opportunity to go to counseling through the job I was working at, And I said, sure. Like, yeah. And I really took it because it was free. But I sat down with her. We got to talking, and she said, I'd like you to check out ACA 12 steps." I'm like, I've already done AA, I did NA, I did Celebrate Recovery, I'm 12 stepped out. I don't want to, and I didn't. It really wasn't for me. I didn't really like any of them. And she's like, "We'll give this a chance." So she gave me a book. It was the yellow book, and started reading it. And I remember I was like, "Wow, that's really good." So I highlighted it,
Yeah.
and I just kept highlighting. I was like, and I'm not really typically the one to read just to read. I like to read something that I'm like to learn a new skill, and that's really what
Uh-huh.
this felt like. I was learning how to put what I went through, or how I felt, or the thoughts that I had, or why I behaved the way I behaved into words. Um, and like you said earlier, that unfortunately we're not the only ones. Fortunately, that there were people brave enough to start putting this down in paper, and because when I was reading through it, I remember thinking like I'm not alone, and I'm not necessarily crazy. There's actually a lot of logic to why you do what you do. On the outside, it may seem crazy, but once you understand the flawed logic, then you can come back and choose to behave in a different way. And that's essentially what was going on. I was letting my past dictate my relationships now. And so after working through some of the 12 steps, I remember like it really messed me up as far as talking about some of that stuff, saying it out loud, even talking about some of the things that I was struggling with. Because the great thing about ACA is you don't just look at how the trauma you went through, but the trauma you've caused for other people, because you've taken that
Uh-huh.
in, and so that's both of those are very difficult to kind of talk through. You know what's happened to you, and the people that you've hurt and how you've hurt them, to understand it and make a different choice. I don't remember what the argument was about, but me and my wife, we were discussing something very heatedly, and she said, "Well, your feelings are valid." And I said, "No, they're not. Like, whatever it was she said." I said, "What she said triggered something."
Uh-huh.
Um, and I said, "All this right here, like what I'm feeling right now, has really nothing to do with you. I need to go cool down. I need to, and then I'll come back." And but it took me years to get to there. That was probably 5 years after I started ACA, because the blowups were kind of, they were frequent. And the things I would say, I would sit with, and I'd be very disappointed with what I said, with the things that I did, but I didn't know what to do. And ACA kind of gave me an outline of what was going on and the steps to take to start to heal, um, and also what healthy should look like. And that's something I struggle with sometimes, is you have people telling you, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Well, what is right? And that was
Uh-huh.
the experience I had. I grew up in a home. I didn't know what a healthy relationship was, and so I go off and get married, and then what? It starts recreating itself. I remember I was early in sobriety. I had a mentor. We were all musicians, and they had a kid, sweet girl, and they said, "Hey, we want you to watch her today." I was like, "No, I never even been around kids."
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "No." They're like, "Yeah, we want you to." And so I spent the day with her, just going around doing our music stuff, and watching her. And then at the end of the day, we were going to get dinner or whatever we were doing. So we all piled up in the car, and I put her in the car seat. And we were driving, and they were in the front seat, and they start to bicker back and forth over a guitar pick. And I remember I was sitting in the back seat, and my anxiety just like it
Uh,
was intense, because I couldn't get out. And in my
yeah.
head, I'm like, they're about to like either fight or get divorced, or like, and this is happening right in front of me. You know what happened? Nothing. They went back and forth. And then they started talking about something different, and it seemed so small, but it blew my mind because I was used to seeing like hair grabbed, slid across the floor, fist fighting, and cussing and everything, and that's not what happened. And so that was kind of like an epiphany, like, hey, there's normal arguments that happen. It doesn't always have
Mhm.
to go to that. Um, so that's something that helped me realize, like, hey, I have a really messed up view of relationships and how
Mhm.
arguments work, and
Well, and you're
so
also in hypervigilance too, right? And I mean, when I first kind of heard that word, I mean, I knew the word, but I didn't ever relate it to myself. And so when I heard that, I realized how much on the edge I was sitting all the time, just waiting for something to happen. And even, like you said, a little argument or something small between people, in my eyes, was huge. It was something big was going down. And it's a very distorted
mhm,
way to look at everything, right? But I love how you said that we're literally don't know what to do. Like, what does healthy look like? It's, we are taught so much stuff in school, yet we aren't taught the foundations of how to be in a relationship, what healthy looks like. Like, I mean, at home, yeah, you got your crap at home, right? Everyone's got different stuff, some more extreme than others, but they don't teach you anything about emotional intelligence in school. They don't teach you about relationships. I mean, none of your actual foundational stuff, right, is taught. And unfortunately, it should be, because these kind of homes and these situations aren't really going anywhere as
mhm.
we're trying. But kids need an outlet or an avenue to see what healthy looks like so that they can start to see this stuff for themselves. Yeah, it's crazy.
One of the things that I think kind of trigger me now today is the unknown. Even if it's a good thing, it can be like a good unknown, like a changing of a job. And I may be going from one good job to a better job, but I don't know everything that goes along with it, and so there's a lot of anxiety, and so um, and I didn't really notice it until I've had to do like these 12 steps, these ACA 12 steps like three times already on different
Mm-hmm.
stuff. The last one I kind of did it on was control. And control in ACA is, I think, control issues, they have a stigma to them.
Uh-huh.
Just like drugs and alcohol, there's a stigma to somebody who has control issues. But in ACA, control is it comes from a place of fear of abandonment, low self worth, um, fear of rejection, or even just living in a chaotic environment. You you're trying to bring safety, and that is your place of safety.
Yeah.
And it's not always like I'm trying to make people do this. It's like, well, I want people to love me, or I don't want them to leave me. So I'm going to try to be the best person I can, or I'm going to try to make them happy, or I'm going to try to check all the boxes at work. And on the outside that looks good, but on the inside it's unmanageable. Because if
Uh-huh.
you can't check all the boxes, or if you do something that makes somebody unhappy, then what happens in here? And so that's the stress, the anxiety that came from that is what I had to start focusing on, because it would lead to discontentment. I mean, there have been times I'm driving, I'm like, I'm just frustrated. I'm almost becoming unhappy. And I remember I was watching a devotional. And I'm like, why am I so unhappy right now? Awesome marriage, 8 wonderful dogs. Things are going great at work. What's going on? And it was just, I didn't know what was about to happen, and and so then I was working on 12 steps again, where we have to give it over to God. We have to admit that we're powerless. We have to that that our lives had become unmanageable again. I had to start back over again. And the serenity prayer is in ACA is a little bit different. It says that God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. Because I would get frustrated because I wanted this person to do this or that, and it's that's not those are control issues.
Uh-huh.
But there are things that we can do, and so to stop, reevaluate, reassess on that specifically, because that's what drugs was for me. It was very much a control thing. I
Uh-huh.
wanted to use a certain type of drug to make me this feel this way, and then the other one to kind of balance that out. And I would have that certain amount, and I would use it in a specific frequency so that I could. I didn't really like go off the rails until I got into meth, and then that was just a blur. But the majority of my drug use was about controlling my emotions.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so that's a big part of ACA is the emotional sobriety. To do that takes maintenance. It takes prayer. It takes reevaluation. It takes talking about it to keep it out in front of you. Learning better communication skills rather than just trying to stuff things down or not address things. Takes learning how to set boundaries, expectations, either with yourself or other people. Have some
It's a whole bunch of relearning, like how to function as a person, how to really show up in your life without that fear. I mean, I haven't read the whole ACA book, but when I first read the laundry list, I was like, oh, check, check, check. Oh, all the checks. Like, oh, how many of these do you identify with? I don't know, all 14. Like, in some way or another. But you know what? I do agree with you that control has this stigma about it. And because it's just a single word, it can mean so many different things. But if you're coming at this as an adult child of dysfunction, addiction, whatever it is, that control equals safety in so many forms. And it is perfectionism, it is people pleasing. You're just trying to control the level of safety so that you can actually operate.
Mhm.
That's, I think, people have a hard time understanding when they're on the receiving end of that control. I'm just trying to be safe. I'm not trying to control you. It's not malicious. It's purely instinctual programming that runs so deep with ACA. It's on another level, and it's really hard for people to understand that.
And safe like doesn't necessarily mean because safe like control may sound like a bad word, and then safe will sound like a good word, but safe may be cutting off relationships and pushing people away. Um, so in emotional intoxication, that's what that is. It's like you're trying to create a safe place. Well, I'm going to cut people off. I'm going to push people away, which doesn't make any sense. But uh, from the if you're afraid of people leaving you, well, I don't need anyone. I don't need you. I don't need this. Um, but in emotional sobriety, it's not just about staying calm. You gotta stay honest. And so with the drugs or in that situation where you're pushing people away, the chaos can kind of feel more normal than the calm peace of a relationship where you kind of talk back and forth. You get used to like I was used to those seeing an argument would escalate to that, and that was normal to me, even though it was abnormal on the outside. I didn't know any better, or and then to see some a normal argument that kind of set me back. I was like, what just happened? Where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
And so trying to create that safe place was to create the chaos, to get loud, to push people away, cut things off, or just leave.
Mhm.
And I had to relearn what that word safe meant. I had to relearn what safe looked like and how to create that safe place.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's so relatable. And it makes me think of when I started doing my healing journey and started surrounding myself with different people, like they're happy, they're positive, they're having these deeper conversations. And I didn't see any of the fighting or the chaos. I'm like, nobody operates like this. Like, this is crazy. And I pushed it away to a certain extent because I didn't feel comfortable. I was waiting for some sort of chaos, or I think that's where self-sabotage comes in, right? You will find ways unconsciously, find ways to mess something up or create chaos. So
Mm-hmm.
that can be a big part,
Mm-hmm.
and it does take time to relearn for sure. Um, how do you think diving into ACA has really affected your recovery part? Like, has that really strengthened the sobriety part for you?
Oh yeah. Um, the way I kind of describe it to my clients is when you stop using drugs and alcohol, like here's the edge, and you create a relapse prevention plan. That's your support system, your family, um, your coping skills, and that brings you a little further back from the edge. But all it's going to take is a bad day, a trigger, a craving, some kind of emotional, and then you're going to be right there close to the edge. And if you have a good support system, you'll be in a better place. The way I see emotional sobriety, and when you start working on it, is when you have those bad days, it's not just about the coping skills. I feel like it's an overall view on life, a view on self, a view on relationships, a view on um, it's learning to see the art and the spilled milk on the countertop. It's like even though that there are some things going on, you can step back and say, okay, there's more to this. Whether it's an argument, whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's you can see things differently. And so I see it as adding more space between you and the edge. Not only do you have the support system and these coping skills, but you have healing in there as well. And so that
Uh-huh.
edge gets further and further away. Like with the pushing people, cutting people off, and doing all that, there's that intense anger there that is like, I want to leave, I want to go get high, I want to go do this, forget it all. But then there's also the guilt of everything that you did in between that.
Uh-huh.
I give a lot of credit in my life to my wife because she, I think she sees through a lot of that. She knows a lot of the stuff that I don't share on a public forum. Uh, we were in an argument one night, and it's not. It's I laugh at it now, but it was not funny at the time. I
Uh-huh.
was very upset. I had all those emotions like leave, go. I was sitting on the couch, and I would, get upset and say those things. I wouldn't move. I would be on the couch. I wouldn't go anywhere, but it was coming out, and that's something that is, one of my main things. Gotten a lot better over the years, um, but it's a deep kind of thing. And I said, well, I'm leaving. I guess we're done, or something like along them lines. She just said no, and like that's
It's
not
like
an
someone
option.
checking you right
Yeah,
there.
and just kind of sat there, and I laugh at it now because I was having a conversation with someone about going to go skiing, and they said, "Don't look at the trees because if you look at the trees, whatever you're looking at, that's where your skis are going to go." I've never been skiing. I don't know if this is true, but when they said that, I'm like, that's kind of what's happening when I get in these intense states. Is I'm so afraid of things ending or leaving or really all these things that weren't going to happen. I'm so afraid of it happening. It's like a magnetic pull that it ends up there. And so I was in that state. I felt like everything was just kind of going towards that direction. When she said no, it was just, well, none of this is real. And I think a lot since I don't know why that sticks out to me so much of that day because it was a lot in the beginning, but over the past 3 or 4 years, really doing more ACA, things have gotten a lot better. I mean, I don't even think last year we even had like a super intense argument at all. Before that, it was probably two or three times. And in the beginning, it was like every week. I was really struggling before I went to counseling. So yeah, and it's not like I get a lot of anxiety when I start to talk about these things because I'm not proud of
Yeah.
them. I'm really not. Uh, but back to your question, does it help in sobriety? Yeah, it's a huge thing. Uh, I feel like it's almost, for me, it was level two. Like I
Mm.
was able to get past the drugs and alcohol, but if I didn't really knuckle down on this, I feel like it wouldn't be long before I was back into that. And that's kind of why when I do share, I focus a lot on carrying that message because I do a lot of treatment. I've been to treatment, and the focus is on drugs and alcohol, and that's very important. But these underlying issues of what drive us to use drugs and alcohol, to numb, to hide, to escape, when we set that away, the drugs, they work. They
Mhm.
work for those reasons, for those needs. But when we set those aside, then what do we have? And we still have those needs. How do we start addressing them? And that this was something I found that helped me to address those needs.
Yeah, I honestly think that a lot of the ACA work, I find it could be helpful on so many levels. I think everybody goes through their own, trauma, whether it be a single event trauma or they've lived with certain things. You don't have to grow up in addiction, but this stuff is so helpful for actually finding out who you are, figuring out what actually belongs to you and what doesn't, because we wrap our identities up in so much of this and we think, well, this is just who I am and that makes me a bad person. But when you peel away all those layers, this isn't who we are. This is the programming we received. These are the layers of other people's beliefs, things that happen to us, and all of the coping mechanisms that we develop just to survive or get through the day to day stuff. When you start peeling away and doing this work, it impacts you deeply on so many levels. And I think it's truly can be used in anything, in any situation. And if 12 step isn't for you, there's so many avenues on how to find recovery, whether it's drug and alcohol or another addiction, or if you're just looking for emotional sobriety. And I know there's a lot of people out there who could just use this for emotional sobriety,
Mm.
and that's a big thing.
Yeah,
Um,
for
I
anybody
wanted,
like
sorry.
interested in the for anybody interested in like the program, the red book is like the equivalent of the blue book. The yellow book is a 12-step workbook that you go through the
Okay.
12 steps, and I started there and then got into the red book, but and then there's another one. It's called the 14 traits workbook. So after you do your 12 steps, if you want to dive deeper into the traits, there's a
Mhm.
workbook specifically for that one. I have that one. It's really cool.
Is it kind of like the step 4
Uh,
workbooks?
the for like inventory, yeah.
When I got to step 4, I was like, wow, like this is the stuff that I've been looking for is to personal responsibility, right? That's huge. Yeah. And it takes a lot to look at yourself in the mirror and to start doing this kind of deeper work, whatever you want to call it, ACA, shadow work, whatever. It
Hmm.
is tough stuff, but it's very, very rewarding for sure. I wanted to ask you about, I know in your treatment and the work that you do, you use a holistic approach. What does that look like?
So using looking at a biopsychosocial model, um, biologically, I like to teach clients about the how addiction develops neurologically, so they have a better understanding of why they have triggers, why they have cravings. Now that's on a biological level, but when you have triggers and cravings, that can kind of bring up some guilt, some shame. And I think if you understand the biological of why your body's reacting the way it is, or even with withdrawals, you'll have a little bit of more grace on yourself. And then for sociological, when you're looking at your friends, your relationships, kind of like what we're talking about now, it's very much integrated, especially if when like in my family system, drugs is normal. So when I stopped using, you lose relationships. Another thing to look at is psychologically and emotionally dependence. Uh, Again, those coping skills. That's how you dealt with the trauma. That's how you dealt with the depression, anxiety, or social interaction. That's how you dealt with things, and now you're losing that. So looking at those different facets, and even spirituality comes in a very big play. That was something else I really struggled with. A question I was asked in that yellow workbook was, when you picture God, is he smiling? My answer was no. And it kind of goes deeper into that. Um, Also with the drug use, and maybe you have some guilt over some things you have done. What is the role of spirituality in your recovery? What was the role of spirituality in your addiction? Um, so looking at all those different areas, I have workbooks that I use to help people explore those different areas of their lives. Also different interventions being like a musical uh, process group where we find songs, we look at the lyrics, we process them, we listen to them, we share them with each other, uh, and either it helps us to maybe describe what we went through in an addiction or through a loss or the hope we have in recovery, and also kind of share, part of our personality with someone. Other interventions may be teaching communication skills and role modeling that with clients. That's a big thing in somebody's sobriety, is now you have to go back and you have to interact with other people. And the thing is, you're not going back to interact with other people that you had all the problems. That's rarely the case. Have I seen that the person who's struggling with drugs and alcohol was the only one with the problems and everybody else was perfect? No, you have to take what you have learned to be the best version of yourself and go back into the situation with other people who are not perfect and still try to get the best out of that relationship. Um, Even though that sometimes the family system does think that that person was the only problem. That's
Yeah.
rarely the case.
Uh-huh.
So, uh, yeah, and then even kind of using the 12 steps or, another means to work through the spiritual issues, thinking, cognitive, emotional. I'm real big into cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive behavior therapy, how your past can influence your beliefs, how your beliefs can influence your thinking, how your thinking can influence your emotions, and emotions influence your behavior. Really breaking that down to a science. A great intervention to use is smart recovery. It's also a great alternative to 12-step groups.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they're more science based. I like both. I've went to both and
Uh-huh.
continue to be immersed in both. I like the smart recovery because it is very practical. It's A, B, C, D. And
Yeah.
whereas over here in 12 step, it's going to get deep. It's going to bring out some stuff. We're going to work on some things. It's very much a social type program. So using a holistic approach, those are some of the tools I use.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it has to be full spectrum, right? Because yeah, like we talked about before, you can't just stop it and then you don't have any of these skills. It's like relearning how to show up for yourself. So what led you to start your podcast?
So again, one of those holistic things is harm reduction. Like I was in sober living, and I can think of three people that I was actually in the dorm with. I was in the dorm, and we slept in bunks right next to each other for years,
Mhm.
and they've passed away due to overdoses. Um, and that was just in that situation. I've had friends pass away from overdoses. I think I counted it up. I was around like 13 in the past like 5 years,
Wow.
And I was in that sober living. I kind of worked my way up. I was a program director, so I had a lot of interaction with like family members. Um, and I've had family members that were very strict on what they thought their recovery should look like. Well, they should do this and this and this. Interacting with mentors, people of the community who would come in and would want their mentee to be this, this, and that. Um, you know, peers are looking at other peers saying, well, you need to do this, this, and that to be sober. Going to meetings and they're saying, well, if you're not doing this and you're not sober, um, and just kind of hearing that. Also, churches can be pretty hard on people too. There are some churches that have recovery groups and that are more understanding of addiction. But just kind of hearing the stigma, hearing the hard views that people had on addiction and recovery and what it should look like, and then losing people all around me. Also, my mom, her like mental health issues along with the addiction. Some people don't understand. Their thought is either they're sober or they're not. There's no in between. Um, when I'm looking at somebody, what are they willing to do? And is that choice better for them? Is it like, I don't care if you're using less drugs. I don't care if you're going from using any needle to just a clean needle. I don't care if you're just using, but in a safe place. Yeah. I remember getting like angry. It was actually at a counselor's conference. We were talking about this stuff and listening to another counselor just go off on people and how they're just addicts and they'll never get it right. And this, I'm like, you're a counselor.
No kidding.
And that's almost like what it took though, is to make, and so that's when I started Pathways to Recovery. I'm not having that person on there to tell me the one true way. What works for you? And I'm not going there to argue with them. I'm not going to tell them that, well, that's wrong, or necessarily that I disagree, or none of that. I want them to share what worked for them, and I'm going to share that with as many people that will watch it, and do that for every person I can get on here, because somebody's going to be on there. I hope. Actually, I've gotten a few texts from people in the community and former clients saying, "Hey, I really liked what you're sharing."
Uh-huh.
If it helps them in whatever that way, good. If they only liked one thing that guy said, awesome. And that's really my only mission or goal with it, is I want to capture people who have figured out something and try to
Yeah.
pass that along to others that may be struggling. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly, me too. And you're right. A lot of people have a viewpoint of black and white, and that's not the way this goes. Whether it's addiction or whatever. And honestly, just talking about the messy middle is probably the best part. And that's where the learning and the aha moments and even if it just helps one person, right? If you take something away, I 100% agree with you. That is the mission in talking about all of this. So where can people find you? They want to reach out.
Addiction Recovery Solutions is my Facebook, on TikTok, Instagram. Addictionrecoverysolutions.org is my website, where you can easily find all those social media sites. Also sign up for services if you're in Texas. And I'm on YouTube.
Awesome. And yeah, I will post all that in the show notes anyways, but thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and explaining why you do what you do, because it's important. And I know that the messages that you share and the people that you have on, I've listened to a lot of your podcast episodes, and it makes a huge difference because that's how we learn, right? This is, honestly, I always think this is just an amazing time to be in the situations that we're in, because there's so much available to us to learn. If you really want to and you have the desire to grow and to change and to just show up better in your life, yeah, podcasts are awesome. There's so much, right?
I really appreciate you allowing me the opportunity. Uh, I, I've I know of a few, about 3 or 4 podcasts I've been able to find that kind of go into these topics, because I know they're hard to share. I get nervous when I share, and I'm really not speaking from a place of being an expert. It's just a kind of a shared struggle of, and really trying to fulfill that 12 step of carrying out that message. So I thank you for, giving me the time to share a little bit about that.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And we will chat soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.